There we go. Hi. Hello, everybody. Let's there we go. Hey, okay, good. We are on. Live from Denver, it is Friday night. Making sure everything is all covered here. Hey, everybody. Yes, looking good, sounding good. Most excellent. Thank you. Yes, let's get this party started. All right. So, yes, you see Mel is not here. She is feeling under the weather just today. It just this morning, it was like, wait a minute, it's a little bit of not something. And then suddenly, and she's checking her temperature now and all that. She's fine. She's drinking a lot of water, taking care of herself, so she's doing fine. But couldn't really be in the show tonight, so we are working around that. So yeah, see everybody, all the usual suspects and critics in the comments. Hey, everybody. So happy you're all here joining me tonight. Okay, good. As folks come on board, as we move forward here. I did not get a quote from her, so we will not have a quote, but I do have my cards as usual. And let me just check and see here if I can, let me see if I can find something really fast that might. Ha! Ha ha! Ha ha ha! Yeah. Cult quotes. I just Googled cult quotes real fast. And the first one that came up was one of my favorite ones. Actually, yes, it's an Isaac Asimov quote. So I'll share this with you guys tonight. There is a cult of ignorance in the United States, and there has always been. The strain of anti-intellectualism has been a constant thread winding its way through our political and cultural life, nurtured by the false notion that democracy means that my ignorance is just as good as your knowledge. And that was certainly a quote from the distant past, Isaac Asimov and all, but still applicable today, yeah? I think so. Oh, happy birthday, Dylan. Wow, excellent. Okay, well, welcome. I'm glad you could catch the show live, and happy birthday. All right. So, okay, so we have some things to discuss tonight. And also, of course, the call-in lines are wide open, and I am more than happy to talk to you guys. 984-214-4154 is the number. And this being a predominantly or meant to be purposefully a call-in show, I would be more than happy to have a chat with y'all. Yeah. Isaac Asimov, he is quite something. Okay, so, but I do have my array of Post-it notes in front of me here. And one of them are some notes that I made this week about cults and getting away from cults. And the reason that I'm talking about this tonight is because I, of course, personally have been having some epiphanies this week. I am reading, finally, there's a lot of Scientology books and memoirs that I've read over the years, but I haven't read all of them. There's an awful lot of literature on Scientology out there. There's a lot of books, there's a lot of breakdowns, there's awful lot of personal stories. And of course, I wrote my own book about it, right? So, of course, I'm going to, pimp that all the time. But I am reading this week. I actually had some time. I made some time. I crushed some time, and I said, okay, I really got to do this now. And because I've got a few books that I need to get through. Janice Gillum Grady's 2 books on the Commodore's Messenger is the title of it. I'm sitting here looking right at it there below the camera. Those are another 2 books I got to read. I'm doing some really deep dive research on dates, times, the timeline of Scientology. And the reason that I'm being going day by day, year by year, and really breaking it down is because of the next book that I want to write, which I'm working on. The outline's done. We're fleshing it out. And this research is now part of that. Well, in doing the research that I do, of course, it has everything to do with my own personal experiences too, especially when it gets down to Scientology. All the cult stuff is very, very, very much part of my own recovery process. But the Scientology stuff in specific is the stuff that really hits home the hardest. And now I'm reading L. Ron Hubbard, Madman or Messiah by Bent Corridon. And this is a book that is kind of old. It's an older book, but it is chock-a-block full of information, some of which I could not believe after all these years and all this work I've done. I'm still learning things. And, you know, we always need to be open to learning new things. And I'm happy to. That's why I'm reading. If I was going to just read a book and I already knew it all, that wouldn't really be very constructive or helpful. So I am, after all these years, I still have epiphanies. And yeah, we did have some rain, actually, just to reply to the comments there. Now, getting back to what I was talking about. So Madman or Messiah has had some facts and testimonials from ex-Scientologists, people who were around Hubbard, of stuff I hadn't seen. And I'll give you an example. Is I have known for years that there were kids put into the chain locker on the boat on the Apollo back in the day when Hubbard was sailing around the big ocean blue and mainly around in the Mediterranean and off the coast of Portugal and Spain and that area. He hung around there a long time, and then he came over to the U.S. And during that time, there was this really rough and tough idea that kids need to be punished by throwing them in the chain locker. And I thought it was I thought that only happened once or twice. Well, not necessarily. It looks like it might have happened to a lot of kids over a longer period of time than I had known. And I, you know, it's bad enough. It's not like you need it to be worse than it already is. It just boggles me how every time I think I've gotten to the bottom of it and I have gotten down to the worst of the worst and how bad it can get, you get surprised by something new, you know, and the tyranny of L. Ron Hubbard is a bottomless well of awful, and it just keeps going. And so, so this book has been quite interesting for that purpose. And so I'm picking up bits and pieces of the timeline and things that happened. Another thing that's been clarified for me in reading this just today was, because I'm kind of tearing through it, I just started it like 2 days ago, and I'm about halfway through right now. And the mission holder conference and time period and the setup to that, I didn't realize in the histories of it. For those of you who are, I can't really lay out the whole thing, but there was a time in the late 70s, early 80s, when basically Scientology was at its peak, and L. Ron Hubbard took calculated action to destroy that entire thing and take it over. And it was interesting how I didn't quite get, all the way up to now, that he destroyed the old mission holder, mission office worldwide setup, but I didn't quite twig that he was actually replacing it with this new Scientology Missions International thing in which Hubbard would have complete control over the mission network. And of course he would, right? Standard dictatorial solution to a standard dictatorial problem. How do I keep control over all these independent thinkers down here who are making me a ton of money, by the way, as Hubbard, right? But they're making too much. They're profiting too much. This is mine. It's all the money should be mine. And that's kind of Hubbard's thing. So some clarification about that and how that went down, and the fact that it was a little bit more premeditated and a little bit more planned out than I had earlier been led to believe from all the things that I had read and talked about. So, you know, seemingly little things in the bigger picture, but important for me to understand Hubbard, Miscavige, the rise of Hubbard, the fall of Hubbard, the rise of Miscavige, and now, as we see, the fall of Miscavige. So, so good, you know, so important, good stuff to get clarified. Yeah, that mission massacre was just insane. Yeah, good one there. The Apollo should have been named the Appalling. They got that right. Just the eyewitness testimonials and the memoirs and stuff from that time period are, you know, it's just more awful than I had thought. And that's actually leading to my point for the show. But we're going to take a call. Hello, you are on. Is this Henny?
Yes, it is.
Hi,
How
Henny.
are you, Chris?
I am good. How are
Hi,
you?
Chris. I'm good. It's so lovely to see you. I hope Melissa's doing well, and I hope you guys are doing good. I missed you last week, and I'm so glad to be back. And you have
Yeah.
a wonderful topic.
Thank good. Yeah, welcome back. How's it going?
Dang. It's going. It's going. The heat is really quite high in the Bronx.
Oh.
Which would, oh yeah, and but we're hanging in there and just trying to push on through. And you had some really, first of all, before I get into the topic,
Yeah.
I had some questions for you. You mentioned you were writing another book, darling.
I am. Yes.
I'm so glad. I am so glad. I can't wait. What is there a release date? Is there a name? Is there? It's just
No, negative. I am keeping
Okay.
this one closer to the vest or chest or whatever than I have with other things. I've been over promising and under delivering, I feel, over the years. And so I want to, all I'm going to say is it's happening, but it's really still right now in its early stages. So I'll just say that.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I wish that you would get over that. I've extended and under the. Oh, I can't wait for you to get over that. That should be really the next topic.
Thank you.
That coincides with this topic, darling.
Fair enough.
Believe me when I tell you.
Thank you.
Okay. I adore you. What was I going to say? Oh, you had mentioned that you had epiphanies.
Yes.
During this week, would you care to share one of them?
Yeah, very much it's on the whole topic that we're talking about tonight, and I will absolutely share one with you here, which is that I have reached a point that it really came driven home to me when I was considering L. Ron Hubbard and reading about Hubbard and the fact that I had. For many, many years, I even got into an argument one time with John Atack over this on a podcast, right? Is I have maintained this idea for all these years up until very recently that there was some kind of good side to Hubbard.
Okay.
Right? That there was some kind of sincerity to his effort, that there was some kind of effort to maybe really help people. And I have now finally come to a place, and I saw other critics get to this place earlier than me, or, who had come out earlier or whatever, and talk about this. And I always kind of went, yeah, but, and now I'm not saying yeah, but anymore, to the idea that L. Ron Hubbard was basically a pretty evil dude. And there wasn't really any good there. And I found myself clinging to that idea for a very long time because I felt I needed to in order to feel better about my emotional investment in the man, and the subject, right? And I needed to have something redeeming there. Hey, guess what? There isn't anything redeeming there, And that was the epiphany, was like, oh, wow. Yeah, this whole thing really was screwed over from the beginning, and I had just been unwilling to see that. So I don't know. What do you think?
I can understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with someone whose language is manipulation, whose thought patterns are, I need to get that person on my team no matter what it is that I have to say. I will use manipulation. I will devalue them eventually. I'll use love bombing in the beginning.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? It's like a whole, it's narcissism. It's narcissism. It's a personality disorder.
Yep.
I actually thought that it was mental illness, and I've come to learn that it is not. It's a personality disorder.
That's right.
There may be mental illness along with it, but it is a personality disorder, which really gives the person control over other people, using whatever they can to get them to believe the bullshit, whatever it is.
That's right.
And that's what trauma bonding is. And there's, the topic of the night, Chris, I find very interesting because, it's not, I don't look at it as you're ever over a cult, because that would mean that there are no existing cults to try to convince you to come their way. You know what I mean?
I do.
So it's almost like you have to come to a radical acceptance that this is who they are, and that you've come to a point where you understand what that is, and you put up boundaries, and you look for red flags.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
You are actually right now almost quoting from my Post-it note, because that was one of my points on my notes here of how is that you are educated, because you can't be cult proof, but you can't. But you can be cult armored.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And as my lovely parents, she knows who she is because she's here, always said, forewarned is forearmed.
That's right. That's right.
And I believe that. And you have to educate yourself, and you have to know what it is you're looking at. And anything that presents itself, with deities or, with things that are rules that have to be followed, things that go against what your authentic self is. Unfortunately, there are people who are born into it, and so their authentic self, as John Atack has explained, has been limited. It has been,
That's
not
right.
John Atack, I'm sorry, it was Steve Hassan.
That
said, you're right, that your authentic self is pushed all the way down so that this new self emerges.
Yeah.
But that's always there, regardless whether you're born into it or not. I would just imagine it would take a hell of a lot longer being born into it to find your authentic self.
I'll say.
Okay?
But
yeah. So there are so many different things, but I just would like to say that, like you said, you have to be educated and look for these things and be aware of these things and use critical thinking. And I'm so glad for you, Chris. You have no idea. And I await with bated breath on that book. I won't mention it again. And I adore you.
Thank you.
And I adore our critics so much. And I'll let you go so you can answer other calls. But you're so important, and this is such an important topic, honey.
Well, thank you very much, Henny. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for calling.
Okay, sounds good.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, right. Yeah, we got some other calls in the queue, so let's get to them. Okay, this is about mission holders. Hello, you are on.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going? David, yeah?
Yes. Very well. Yeah. I missed last week as well, but yeah, I thought it would be interesting because you just mentioned the mission holders again. So what you just mentioned, was it Hubbard that purged the mission holders, or was it Miscavige that purged the mission holders first?
It was both of them, but it was Hubbard's plan, and it was basically executed by Miscavige, and it was the first time that Miscavige became a public-facing person that started dealing with the public directly. Up until then, he had been pretty much hidden away in the Sea Org with Hubbard.
Yeah.
So it was kind of his grand entrance into the scene was this 21-year-old, power player who wasn't going to take any crap from anybody. And they were he and the other people that he was working with, the messengers, were basically the young Turks. They were the young kids. And that's how even, some of the vets talked about them as these kids. But they had all the power of Hubbard, and because they were his messengers, they spoke for him. So they were able to get away with a tremendous amount of abuse.
Yeah, yeah. So a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned I drew a parallel between that and Saddam Hussein, but I think I actually made the wrong parallel. Now I don't know. You've probably read more on what this was like than I did, but it's interesting to compare the mission holder purge with Saddam Hussein's initial purge. And Saddam Hussein's purge is on YouTube, by the way. It actually is on YouTube. What happened was Saddam Hussein brought in this man in chains who said that he was part of a plot to overthrow the Iraqi regime in collaboration with Syria. And this was in front of all of Saddam Hussein's lieutenants, like hundreds of them. And then he said the following members of the body, I can't remember what the name was, were also with me in this plot. And he started naming people. And suddenly everybody was absolutely terrified because whenever your name came out, somebody grabbed you and you disappeared. And then people were shouting, they were screaming, they were yelling glory to Saddam Hussein because nobody knew who was going to be caught next. And why did nobody knew who was going to be caught next? Because there was no plot and it was just a pure political purge.
That's right.
I'm wondering if that would have been the kind of atmosphere in the mission holders purge.
Well, you know, it was interesting because almost all of them ended up getting the axe in the end. There were something like, according to the Madman and Messiah, I've never seen a figure connected with this till today. There were some 600 people purged out of the church in a very short period of time.
Oh, wow.
Right? And of course, this was the closest thing to a schism Scientology ever experienced. I mean, it wasn't just 600 people. Those were the ones who got in trouble, but a fantastic number of people watched that go down and went, nope, this ain't for me anymore. And they took off, right? And there was a real Splitsville with Scientology. But the attitude that you talk about there and the sort of cruelty connected with that was 100% connected with the mission holder purge. And and what they have in Scientology that makes it somewhat not analogous is they have the e-meter and sec checking. So the isolation factor in Scientology is, you know, is pretty high there. So they did some group meetings and they did declare some people right on the spot in front of everybody to kind of establish, hey, we're not fucking around here, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that happened. Miscavige from the stage. You're declared, right? And then over the next, you know, months and years, people just started disappearing. And this included not just the mission holder folks, but as the paranoia of Hubbard was ramped up, which Miscavige was feeding, he was able to use that to get rid of anybody who Miscavige thought was going to be a problem for him too. So that was, it was a crazy tumultuous time.
Oh, I can imagine, definitely. Now, on the topic about being over a cult, I wonder what your input is on this particular question. It's one thing that comes up occasionally among people ex-Scientologists talking about their time in Scientology, and it's the debate on TR0 bullbaits.
Yeah.
There are some ex-Scientologists that say that it made them a stronger participant in arguments because they could not be distracted, and there was others that said that it was bad. It was bad even in the long term because it taught them that expressing emotion was always bad, and that meant it was bad. So discounting how horrible it would have been to be subjected to it, which of those two sides do you think would be more accurate?
Well, they both are. See, and that's the funny thing about it is that the gains that people have are legit. You know, never have I tried to take those things away from people, right? However, at the same time as you can have an individual who's shy, introverted, not able to look somebody else in the eyes, not able to speak clearly, believe me, the TRs will deal with that. You know, you will be able to look at somebody in the eyes when you're done with that. And you will be able to speak in such a way that somebody can hear you. That's a fact.
Yes.
But Is that the only thing that does that? Hell no, right? You could do that in
Not at
endless
all.
numbers
Not
of
at all.
communications classes that are offered out there. You could get that from going and joining Toastmasters and learn how to do public speaking.
Oh, yes.
Right? So there's a number of
Yes,
avenues.
do that.
Yeah, there's a number of avenues to that result. Yeah. And I'm not going to deny or somehow feel like it's some notch in the belt of Scientology's favor that they can produce that result with some people. The problem is way more people are psychologically damaged by that work, right? Especially when you're enduring it for hours and hours and hours. I probably did a couple thousand hours of TRs in my time in Scientology.
Oh, yeah.
That's nuts.
It was what I was going to say myself. With Sonny Pierre said she had over 200 hours of just sitting in front of somebody with her eyes closed.
Yep.
But what help is that to anybody?
Right.
It's one thing to say, oh, this is. It would be one thing maybe to do it once for an hour. Right. It's quite another to be doing it for hours on end. And I mean, I don't know because obviously you were in the Sea Org, Sonny was in the Sea Org. It was probably different, but it's like I find it difficult to believe the public Scientologists never had to do it more than once, and then like even 10 hours or 20 hours. That's a lot of time to spend basically doing absolutely nothing.
Oh, absolutely. And those numbers are very low, by the way. When you get up to the professional TRs course where you're doing really rough and tough, it's called TRs the hard way, by the way, inside Scientology. Mm-hmm. You're talking hundreds of hours just to get through the class. The Success Through Communications class, on the other hand, which is the public level communications course, honestly, I really don't have a problem with it. Because you're not doing any of those drills for long enough to actually mess with you. And that's the point, it has to be a successful, gainful thing for you, or you won't continue. So they can't give you the overwhelming, destroy your mind, have your brain leak out of your ears because you can't take it anymore kind of stuff at the very beginning. It just doesn't work out, So
it's
that's
the bait and switch.
Exactly. Lots of bait and switch. Lots of it. Yeah. So I would say, for me, getting back to your original question, at least I think what you were asking is, I would say for me, from my position now, I think that you're kind of over it when you're kind of, I don't know. I mean, you don't have to say the words I'm saying, but somehow a recognition of the fact that the stuff that was done to you was actually done to you for the purpose of manipulating you and harming you, not helping you. There's a recognition of that I think is necessary before a person could be considered to be over the cult, whatever one they were involved in.
Mm. Yeah, before they realized I was in a cult. I wasn't just in this self-help group or this misguided group. It was a cult. Now, before I go, I'm just going to say, in the UK at the moment, we are basically witnessing Operation Freakout 2.0 happen in the UK right now.
Oh, really? In what way?
Drew Pavlo, an Australian anti-communist, anti-Chinese Communist Party activist, is currently under arrest allegedly for sending a bomb threat to the Chinese embassy, which he almost certainly didn't do. This is literally exactly the same thing that Scientology did to Paul F. Cooper.
I was just thinking that. Yeah, there you go. Well, happens every day, unfortunately. Setting people up for things they didn't do, getting them in trouble with the law is SOP for pretty much every cult out there. And that very much includes
specifically something as serious as a bomb threat as well.
Yeah. Or worse. I mean, whatever they can get away with. The idea is remove the piece from the board forever. Get it gone.
Yeah. Now, the difference here is that now, if anything, it's going to be much easier to establish that this threat or these threats were faked. Whereas back in the day, I read somewhere, I don't know if it's entirely accurate, that the only real reason that Paula Cooper ended up exonerated was because they found the files in Operation Snow White.
Correct. And that was 2 years after the charges had not been dropped, but they weren't really pursuing them anymore. But she was on tenterhooks for 2 years, from 1975 to 77.
Oh, yeah.
Until they finally did the raid, and they found irrefutable evidence in the GO files, the Guardian's Office of the Church of Scientology, that they had set her up, that they had planned the entire thing.
Oh, yeah.
And that the FBI had been taken for a ride. And I'm
sure you would have spent 2 years with a sword of Damocles over your head either way.
That's right. After all the other crap they'd already done to her. I mean, it was years of nonsense she had to endure. And that's, again, just SOP for these groups. You know, that's not the only one Scientology did that to, I am sure. It's just the one they didn't get away with.
Oh, yeah. And the other thing about Scientology and groups like, frankly, the Nazis is sometimes you have to wonder, why do they insist on writing all of this down and recording it? It's like the Nazis recorded every horrible thing that they did, which made the Nuremberg trials so much easier.
Yep.
Scientology recorded every damn thing, which meant that all the evidence of everything they did was there for when the FBI raided. If they just didn't write it down, then it would be harder to prosecute.
Exactly. It's just a little hard to do that when you're running an international spy ring, which is what they were doing. And when you're doing that, you know, you got to give people directions and orders and keep track of stuff. And so, you know, but even the Guardian's office back then had a sort of a internal security system where they had this thing called a red box, where all the really nasty stuff went, like straight up, you know, if it implicated Hubbard or Mary Sue in a crime, straight up illegal stuff, that all went in the red box. And the red box in the real world was a briefcase. So they could pick it up and run if something happened, you know. But your point is well taken.
It's something that makes you wonder, had they never heard of paper shredders?
No, they did, and they started using them pretty extensively starting after 1977. They had whole shred parties of stuff. If Hubbard even sniffed a whiff of some kind of law enforcement poking its head around, it was shred party time. And they did culling and shredding and vetting of their materials constantly through the late 70s and early 80s to hide Hubbard and protect him. And I've heard the same things have been done by David Miscavige whenever he thought shit was about to go down, like Marty Rathbun.
Well, I remember Tony Ortega did leaked a plan. Well, Tony Ortega's blog had plans of one of the buildings. I don't know if it was in the flag building or not, but there was a whole room with this massive industrial paper shredder on the publicly available architecture plans.
Huh.
Oh yeah, like it's got like this room just off the side with a massive paper shredder that took up a space on the architectural plans. They were obviously preparing to destroy records if they needed to.
There you go. Yeah, just par for the course for these guys.
Yep.
All right, man. Well, I'm going to let you go. I got another call in the queue, and we got to get on with it. All right. So thanks for calling.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Great call, man. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye. All right. And let's get to this other call here. Okay. Hello, anonymous person.
Hello.
Hi.
How
can I help you this evening?
First of all, thank you. Oh, well, I've been trying to get in touch for a while, but I'm always afraid that somebody in the church is going to find out who I am and they get in trouble.
Okay.
So is there a chance?
Not from this phone call.
Okay. I love your job. I love your work. Thank you so much. I feel you saved me. You opened my eyes. And 4 years ago, I started another another look at life. And I appreciate you very much. So thank you.
You're
And the
very
reason
welcome.
why I went through that path is because my relatives, like we were all, a lot of my family, it's in Scientology and they are in Clearwater. And I was there. Um, and my relative went into the OT levels and she changed. And I started asking questions and finding out, going into the internet, and I found all this. I went into the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So I want to know what happens. She's not to 7. So what happens after they finish OT8? What else do they do? What else the church does to get their money? Because I think this is all about the money.
It is. It is all about the money. And
what is she doing? What is she really doing in OT7?
Oh, yeah. Well, you'll have to. It's complicated, right? We actually did a whole show on it, I think about a month ago or something, as far as what's covered on the OT levels and what you're doing in auditing those. So if you want to check that out. It's basically just, talking to yourself. I mean, that's kind of really what it is at the end of the day, but it's with all this really weird belief structure and you're kind of building up your ego in a very unhealthy way by doing the OT level auditing. And we describe why that is in that earlier show. So I'll refer you to that.
I'll look it up.
What's that?
I will look it up because I've been trying to keep up with your shows, but I have not seen that one yet.
No worries. Yeah, I think it's called, it's the one, I think it's the one on Tom Cruise. I think it's that show. So check that out. It's, I think it was about a month ago or something, and it's about Tom Cruise. So it's one of these critical conversation shows. And that'll answer your question as far as what's happening on the OT levels. But you had some other questions about getting her out?
Yes, also that. Okay, so one specific question. Do you think that video is going to show me, like when they're doing the 6-month review?
Yep.
What is that? It's like a program and they go like weeks in there and they just go into the org and they just do stuff in there.
They do stuff,
every 6
yes.
months.
They do stuff. The 6-month check, or what they call the refresher, is where they go back, where somebody who is auditing on OT7 goes back to Clearwater in Florida, right, back to Flag, and they get a sec check. And they get checked over and they get corrected on anything that they're not doing right on their auditing, and then they get sent back home. And that whole process will usually take a few weeks. And that's what happens there.
Okay.
Yeah. And they usually spend a lot of money because they are buying accommodations at Flag, which are not cheap. And all the meals that they have to be there at Flag. They can't leave the base. Especially right now, they can't leave the base because of all the COVID restrictions. So they have to quarantine, I think, still. Maybe they canceled the quarantine, but I don't know yet. But they have to comply with all of the crazy COVID regulations. So they can't leave the building, except to go to their room, which is in the building. So they're basically stuck there while they're there in Clearwater.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the other question is, what do they do after they finish OT8? What other services does Scientology offer them? Like, what else can be wrong with them that they need to go back?
Yeah, they can do classes. There's a ton of training that they can do, and they encourage the OT8s to do that. They have to read all of Hubbard's books, listen to all of his lectures, and there are, by the way, thousands of Hubbard lectures, and they have to pay for all that. And they also can do other kinds of auditing. Not necessarily OT auditing, but there's a whole rundown called Superpower, and there's a whole other thing called the Cause Resurgence Rundown, where they just kind of run around a pole for hours a day. There's really silly stuff, but they can pay for that and do that and still keep doing Scientology. There's also 3 L rundowns. Those are very, very expensive auditing that's delivered in Clearwater that they can do as an OT8. So there's still plenty of things for them to spend their money on in the church, even after they get to OT8.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. You're very welcome.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Interesting call. Cool. So I want to thank the super chats, guys. Thank you very much for those. I noticed 2 or 3 of those come in. And yes, I41, Robert Redman, and Dylan, thank you very much for those super chats. Very appreciated. Supporting the channel is always 2 thumbs up from me. And I will answer your question, Dylan. Any updates on the meter or tone scale vids? Yeah, I've kind of been throwing out little things every week. I'm still working on it. It's I'm still doing the motion graphic stuff. Now there's other things about DaVinci I'm also learning, which is going really well. I mean, I'm just so happy with how much I am learning about this software and what I can do with it. And I need to play around with that a bit to learn how to do the animation. And that's still a work in progress. And that's Henny, what I was referring to, really, those 2 videos on the over-promising and under-delivering. Is I've been promising these damn videos for years, and it's just ridiculous. I feel so bad about it. But they're going to be good. They are being produced. And the tone scale one is the first one. Like I said, the script is basically done, but I need to rework a bunch of stuff, and I need to get those animations done. So that's what's happening with that. So thank you for asking. All right, let's just catch up on some of these comments here. Yes. Or to ask a current scientist to potentially make them question. Yeah, Jay Davis is asking, what would be the best thing you could say or question to ask a current Scientologist that could potentially make them question their belief? There is not really a basic platform-wide, generic question. It doesn't really work that way. Unfortunately, Jay Davis, I'm going to have to say you got to know the person. And you have to understand what it is about the cult or Scientology here specifically. Why are they a Scientologist? What appeals to them about it? What is it such a big deal for them? And then you start questioning around that. Oh, I got into Scientology to improve my relationships. Oh, really? How's it working for you? Are all your relationships great now? And that's not a hostile question, but it's a probing question. It's oh, really? So how about that? Oh, I joined Scientology so I could make lots of money. Oh, yeah? Are you making lots of money? How much is going to the church now? I mean, just innocuous questions like that. Things that might make them go, those kind of questions. But definitely from a point of view of curiosity, interest, that kind of flow, not, Scientology, why are you doing that? You don't even want to go anywhere near that attitude when you're talking to somebody who's actually a Scientologist. Yeah. Thanks, hey, hon. Yeah, you're right. I do give myself a really hard time about that stuff. No, X-Cyan, the DaVinci Resolve software is not Mac only. I have a PC and I use it on my PC. They have Mac. It's absolutely free, or you can pay. I'm not even gonna get no whole promotional thing about it, but I really love the software. It really beats Adobe. But it's a whole different way of approaching it. The editing part is pretty same on a timeline. You throw things on and put it all together. But how you go about doing the color grading and the sound editing and the color and the motion graphics, they're all very different from how Adobe works. So it's been a learning curve for me, learning this software, and I am just pleased as punch about it. Because it rocks over Adobe. It's way better because it's all contained in one, it's all under one hood. It's not multiple programs that you have to run and integrate with each other. And more importantly, there's no goddamn subscription that you have to pay every month to use the software. I despise that model. So, okay. Yeah, Joe, that's a great one. Ask if they're getting any benefits from Scientology. Oh, absolutely. Really? What? Tell me all about it. Oh, yeah? Really? Interesting. What about this and this and this, right? What about this problem? What about this problem? What about this problem? Oh, yeah, okay. You know. Okay. Yeah, good suggestion there, Joe. Okay. Yeah, Dylan, DaVinci is free. It's a free download. If you want to buy it for life, it's $300, which I just did a couple weeks ago to get a couple added features and effects. But the whole software package works, and it's a free download. You can't beat that price. And I like I said, I've just been completely impressed by it. I'll never go back to Adobe. That is for sure. I've used Final Cut Pro and a couple other editing softwares, but I find DaVinci to be significantly better. All right, so let me get back to my Post-it note here. Oh wow, 6:46. We're a little bit far along, so let me go over a couple of these things, and let me be clear in what I mean when I say, you know, you're getting over a cult, because this is all from my perspective, my point of view on these things. And everybody's kind of different, and everybody's got their own needs and their own emotional requirements, right? So it's not like I've got some, what's the, you know, secret special line here or, you know, special sauce or something. But I do believe that in the vast number of cases, these points will be applicable. And they've certainly been applicable in my life and my recovery. And it's taken years and years of work to get here. And everybody's, you know, this is not an overnight thing. And I was so, I just smile. I just think back on how I used to think about things, and I just laugh. I mean, I've always had this thing about speed and get stuff done, getting it done quick. You know, let's go, taka, taka, taka. And there's just no speeding up a recovery process. It just is gonna take what it's gonna take. But I think I used to say, you know, it's a lifetime endeavor to get over being in a cult. And now that I've gotten to, you know, so many milestones crossed, I don't know that it's a whole lifetime thing. I don't mean that you're going to forget about it, that it's not going to be part of your story or your narrative or whatever, or that it's going to fall away into insignificance, although that would be fine if it did. But that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. For me, getting over a cult is, it's not affecting me anymore. It's not occupying my mind all the time. It's not occupying my dreams. But more importantly, I suppose, well, first off, of course, you'd have to be completely out of it and disconnected from it and totally away from it in order to get over it. Right? If you're constantly being reminded or having them contacting you or knocking on your door or trying to get you back in or something, it's going to be real hard to get over it, right? So you're going to have to like get it the hell out of your life. I think that's really important. Realizing or coming to a place where the language is no longer occupying your thinking. I don't any longer. There is no more Scientology going on in my head when I am faced with life's problems. And it used to be the case that if I got, okay, let me give you an example. If I got sick, immediately, PTS, I'm PTS, there's an SP, I'm PTS, right? And you guys, I think you guys know what I'm talking about, right? I'm a potential trouble source. That's why I'm sick. That's why I had this accident. Oh, I fell down. PTS. When that's all gone, when that's no longer your immediate thought, right? When it's like, oh yeah, that's all gone out of your head now. The language has basically been extinguished or evacuated out of your mind. And you've been thinking with other ways of thinking about those life problems. You don't think about it in a cult paradigm anymore. I think that's a major, major step and a very key step to getting over the whole thing, right? Is the indoctrination, brainwashing, if you will, of the cult leaders' ideas of how you're supposed to interpret the world, how you're supposed to look at things, when that's kind of gone. And you're able to just look at things the way you want to. from your own ideas of things. That's, I think, a very, very important part of this. Just looking at the comments here really fast. Yeah, exactly, Joe. Turning it into a learning experience. Great comment there. Yeah, I don't think I would do religious psychology, Robert, just to answer your question here in the comments. Yeah, I don't think I would do that. If I was going to pursue a PhD, it would probably be in social psychology, actually, because that's kind of the field that embraces both the psychological and sociological things that I think about a lot. So I think that's the direction I would go. Although religious studies was something that I thought about for quite a while. So I'm not completely decided on that or saying that I wouldn't go in that direction. It might be quite interesting to pursue a religious studies, religious psychology degree, but I don't think that's the discipline I'd want to go down. Okay, getting back to my list here. Emotional needs. Okay, the reason we get into these cults, the reason we get into bad relationships, bad situations, is because we feel it somehow is going to fulfill or meet our emotional needs and requirements. I'm absolutely positive that is true. And you could say lots of other things about why people get into cults, including recent changes in their life, trauma, they get caught at a down moment. That's all very true, but isn't that really just meeting their emotional needs? Right? Whether it's a traumatic moment in your life, whether it's an amazing time in your life, if this group or this individual can appeal to you in such a way that you feel you need them in your life, you have to have that. That's when you get that culty relationship going, is on that needful desire. So I think breaking free of that and having your emotional needs being met kind of more by yourself. Not necessarily you have to live in isolation or seclusion or that nobody else is part of your life. Obviously, our spouses meet our emotional needs. But what I mean is that your emotional needs are no longer being met by abuse, by trauma-inducing activities, right? You're no longer feeling compelled to have to go down to the church or even independent Scientologists, right? You no longer have to go pick up the goddamn e-meter cans in order to deal with the problems of your life. You can just go deal with the problems of your life. You don't have to have this cult solution that is no solution. We already know these things are not a solution. They are just furthering the problem. So I think a vital part of breaking away and knowing that you're over the whole thing is there are no more emotional needs that you have to fulfill through that group or activity or seminars, whatever the thing is that you were part of. Okay, I'm getting a lot of questions here, but I want to finish these points first, and then I'll see if we have time. So no more compulsions to be part of the group. Right, which goes hand in hand with that emotional needs point. And then finally, what Henny and I were talking about, right, is having some understanding of what the hell happened to you, like really understanding it. You don't have to go get a psych degree in order to do that. I've gone all the way down that road, right, trying to understand this stuff so that I can more easily and effectively help other people as well as help myself. But even with all that work I've done, it still takes all this time. But if you go into therapy, if you start reading a bunch of books, that's going to be fine. That's adequate. You don't have to go pursue degrees. That's not the level I'm talking about. But at least understanding it. And the reason why is, as Henny and I were talking about, is because it armors you up. It defends you. That knowledge becomes a thing that allows you to now recognize the red flags of coercive control. And when somebody's trying to isolate you or manipulate you, you see it for what it is. You go, oh yeah, no, I'm not, no, thanks. So not down for that, and you can still be fooled. You can still be deceived. You can still be tricked into things, but your ability to spot it will be a little bit faster and a little bit easier if you are educated as to what the hell happened to you in the cult experience you had. And I think that is really, really important, because how can you say you're totally over something or you're never going to have that problem again if you never really figured out what happened to you in the first place? I guarantee you that if you do not do that, you will be 10 times more susceptible to cult hopping or getting involved in some other destructive situation or group. So I think that that is vital for that. Okay. And those were the points. Those were the points I wanted to go over. So I'm glad we had the time to get into that a little bit. Looking back at the comments here and stuff, I see some questions. Mark, you must be new to my channel. You're asking if I consider myself an atheist now that I'm out of a cult. Well, I've been out of the cult for 9 years, coming up on 10 now, and I have pretty much been an atheist this whole time. I have rejected organized religion pretty much as a whole. No current religious philosophy I'm aware of quite fits the bill for how I think about things. And so I feel no need or compunction to go be part of any other organized religion or religious activity. I'm perfectly fine with the way I think about things, and I do have beliefs, I do have hopes, I do have ideas, and of a religious or spiritual nature or whatever. But I don't subscribe to any other organized religion at this time. All right. Hey, hon, you're funny. Okay, Robert, do you think the 2000s atheist movement, now that it's splintered in part is Atheist Plus, is now a religious movement, or other atheist critics claim? As other atheist critics claim. Okay, I don't think of atheists as a religious movement. I think that you will find groups of people get together, and oddly enough, those groups have similarities. They have characteristics that make them a group. And in-group, out-group thinking, us versus them, is part of any group. Any group. I mean, think about it. Therefore, the consequences of us versus them thinking, you're the bad guys, we're the good guys, right? There's something wrong with you, there's something good about us. That whole line of thinking is part of every group activity, or every kind of group. It's when you add the abuse and the trauma and the cult control techniques and stuff that you get things going whack. But it's perfectly natural and normal for groups to do the us versus them thing. And the atheists of the 2000s, I guess, the little bit that I'm aware of, and the whole Atheist Plus thing and stuff, this is a group of people who have been traumatized by religion for the most part. And so they are very angry people. And I don't mean to paint with too broad a brush here. Not everybody in the atheist world is a very angry atheist. But enough of them are that you go, wow, that's a really angry guy. And they're not down with tolerance and compassion and understanding for other people's beliefs, because those beliefs, they think, are the cause of their trauma. And I don't necessarily know that that's true, but they sure think so. And so you get an awful lot of fervent, cult-like talk and think and act, right, kind of thing out of that kind of group. And I think it's more trauma-based than it is cult-based. I'm just kind of throwing these out as little. We could do a whole show on this, as kind of what I'm trying to say, and I'm trying to keep it short. So yeah, no, I'm not going to start my own religion. Oh, good. Thanks, Mark, for clarifying that. And yeah, you'll find lots and stuff on my channel about my thoughts about religion and God and spirituality and stuff like that, if you keep watching, especially in my Q&As. And in fact, I think I had, maybe even today, but sometime this week, there was a post on my Critical Clips channel about my thoughts about God. So you can also check out my Critical Clips channel, Mark. It's linked on my main page of my YouTube channel. Okay. That's funny. Okay, good. Yeah. Oh, thanks, hey, hon. Yeah, stick around. There's lots of good stuff here. Cool. All right. So I think that's all the Q&A we will do. Yep, because we are going to wrap up. You guys are so awesome. Thank you for sticking around with me through all of this. And I hope that my points were somewhat on. I think they are. Certainly the things that I have come to realize this week are kind of milestones I've achieved in my own recovery process. So regardless of whether this is fully applicable to everybody else, what I just broke down for you is basically my recovery. And if my channel is my documentation of my own recovery process, then I think I can call it a done for my own personal movement out of Scientology. I mean, damn, it only took 9 years, almost 10. But I really do feel like when here was the other thing I wanted to share with you guys. Yes. This is the best part. Or one of the best parts. And it was the thing that I hit on this week, reading Madman and Messiah, that I went, wait a minute, I'm thinking about this wholly differently than I used to. And it was this. I'm reading about kids in chain lockers, and I'm reading about all these other abuses, Paulette Cooper, all the other stuff that Bent Corridon talks about. A lot of it I already knew, but some of it I didn't. And I'm thinking to myself, as the guy who talks about Scientology and cults all the time, I'm reading this and I'm thinking to myself, who falls for this? Who could possibly allow themselves to fall into this? This is insane. This is crazy. Why wouldn't you walk away the first day? I started thinking those very thoughts that I always have been pushing back against for years, right? And I realized with this dull crash, oh my God, all of my rationalizations and justifications for Scientology and why it is the way it is are gone. They're just gone. It's not okay. There's no part of it that's okay. And it never was. And I had been raised in it. So I had been taught from a very young age that all of this makes perfect sense. And all the Scientology and all of L. Ron Hubbard's crazy ass proclamations and rules and regulations and the Sea Org and all of it, really it all kind of makes a kind of sense, you see. And if you just look at it this way, and if you just kind of bend your head this way, then, it works and it makes sense, right? And it's all logical and rational and reasonable. And no, where I finally got to the place where no, none of it's okay. None of it makes any sense. And it's just not right, And I don't know, what can I say? Kind of big moment, So, all right, so let's do one of our cards here. Jono, my dad left the church. I think that's directed to me. My dad left the church in the late 80s, early 90s, as did my mom. They were both out by then, and I, unfortunately, was deep in by that point. Here we go. Okay, so this is a cognitive bias we're going to share this week. It's called the framing effect. Okay, check this out. You allow yourself to be unduly influenced by context and delivery. It's called the framing effect. It's how information is framed, right? I talk about that all the time. No one likes to think of themselves as easily manipulated. However, it's only when we have the intellectual humility to accept the fact that we can be influenced that we can limit how much we actually are. That's a good point. Try to be mindful of how things are being framed or what's being left out. Right? That's the tough part about media literacy and trying to get people to think critically about media stories is they almost always miss on what's not here in this story. What is not being told to me that would actually change the context or meaning of this information. And when you leave stuff out, you can fool people in ways that they never catch on to because they don't think to ask, what's being left out of this? And that's just one example of how you can use knowledge of the framing effect so you don't, succumb to that bias. All right, guys. Yeah, exactly. So, thanks for watching. I hope this show was entertaining, informative, and educational as always. And I hope you guys will support the channel and support my efforts at all of this. And with that happy news, you guys have a great weekend. We will have an update podcast with Sarah Landry coming up tomorrow. You guys are going to see that. And a regular Q&A show on Sunday. All right, guys. Bye-bye.